Hello and welcome to another series of the video. In the last video, we have introduced you to the concepts of margin and also markup. Now we are going to combine that together, and then we are going to show you how does this actually applies when you are actually counting or calculating your price. So the first one is actually a margin pricing. Now, in this case, they are saying that the calculation is considered as forward. Now, the reason why is it forward is because we are going to calculate the selling price rather than the item cost. So, in this case, that we are going to calculate what is the selling price from the item cost that is going to be given to us. So, if it is a margin pricing, then the calculation will be the selling price in dollars. It's going to be equals to the item cost divided by 1 minus the margin, and that will be in percentages. So let me just give you an example. So a retailer wants a 40% margin for a product that costs them $3. So what is the selling price? So in here, it is a forward calculation because retailers are going to sell it, so because there's a selling price, to consumers like you and me. So because of that, that is a forward calculation. So we can use the formula here. So selling price is going to be, so the item cost, it's going to be $3 divided by 1 minus margin. So 1 minus 40%. So this is going to give me $3 divided by 60%. And if you punch that into your calculator, you should be able to get $5. Alright, so I hope that makes sense. Now when we have forward, we are also going to have backward calculation. Now the backward calculation, it is going to be relatively quite similar. So in this case, that now we are given the selling price, and obviously we're also getting the margin percentage, and we are going to calculate the cost. Now, if you actually are pretty comfortable with the mathematics, so you can see that if you already learned this, you are actually be able to transform that into this very easily. So you don't really have to remember quite a lot of formula. So in this case, let's just go through one example. So now, suppose a retailer believes that a product should be sold at $5 and this person wants to make 40% margin. So this person should pay the wholesaler no more than how much? So we want to find the cost in dollars, and that's going to be selling price, which is $5 times 1 minus margin, so 1 minus 0.4. Now if you punch this again into your calculator, you should be able to get $3. Now, can a retailer determine the wholesale price? Now, as I said, any marketing question normally will answer as it depends. So again, the answers to this is going to be it depends. It depends on what? So if you think about retailer, some retailers have a much bargaining power than the others. So give you an example, Kohl's and Woolies and probably Aldi, these three retailers are going to have much bargaining power because they are able to sell a lot more than an ordinary retailers, like for example, your convenience store next to your apartment or next to your home. So they won't be able to compete as much as these big giant retailers. So obviously when you are negotiating with retailers and when you are negotiating with big retailers, especially like Woolies and Aldi and Kohl's, and they have such a huge bargaining power, and therefore they can actually determine the price. It's like more like, okay, I'm willing to buy at this price, take it or leave it, but as an exchange, they are able to buy in bulk. Let's say we are not talking about one dozen or 1 or 10 dozen. They are talking about a container right? So if you think about that one cargo ships full of the product, then obviously you actually can sell a lot more. Okay, so we have the margin pricing. Now what we are doing is that we are also going to calculate the markup pricing. So markup pricing is, the markup is basically the add up on the cost. So let's say if you have 50% markup on a $10 item, then your selling price is going to be $15. So to find out the selling price, in this case is forward, so we want to know the selling price from the item cost. Now this is the formula. So if you think about it, the markup pricing forward, it's actually almost similar to the margin pricing backward. So you just have to think that they are actually opposite, quite the opposite. So let me give you an example right here. Suppose a retailer wants a 40% markup on costs on the product that cost them $3. Then the selling price would be how much? So the selling price, it's going to be $3, which is your item cost, times 1 plus the markup. So that's 0.4. So that's going to be $4.20. Okay. So I'm just going to follow this formula. And probably, as you have guessed it, the backward formula will be the forward formula for the margin pricing. So they are all like sort of swapped. So in here, suppose that the retailers believe a product should be sold at $5 to be competitive and they want to make a 40% markup on costs, then it should pay the wholesaler no more than how much? Well, in this case, if you can see, the cost is equals to the selling price, that will be $5 divided by 1 plus 0.4. And if that's the case, then obviously the cost has to be about $3.57. Okay, so that's how you perform a markup pricing and also the margin pricing. Okay, let's take a look at the example right here. The usual retail price of product X is $10. The manufacturer cost to produce the item is $4. The retailers take a 50% markup while the wholesalers is 10% margin. Calculate the retailers and wholesalers price in dollars. Okay, that's straightforward. Let's take a look at this. So the first one is we need to understand what's the relationship between wholesalers, retailers, and manufacturer. So if you think about the map or the diagram, it will be, first of all, you will have the manufacturer, and then the wholesaler, and then the retailers. So these are the relationships of or the chain that will pass us through. Now you know that this is priced at $10. So the retail price, so you know that this is actually at $10. That's the retail price, RRP. And you know that the manufacturer cost to produce the item is $4. So you got the cost, $4. And now what I want is to find out the wholesaler's price and the retailer's price. So now if you think about it, so in each of the chain, you will have a manufacturer cost, manufacturer selling price, wholesaler's cost, wholesaler selling price, retailer's cost, retailer selling price. So if I'm going to draw that correctly, so let me just redraw that one more time. So manufacturer, you got the cost, which is $4, and selling price. Let's put it blank. And then you will have wholesaler, and you got the cost of wholesaler and selling price. And you will have retailers, you got the cost of retailers, and you also have the selling price of the retailers. Now we know that the selling price of the retailers is $10, but I just want to see the relationship in here. What does it mean by all of this? I'm just going to use different color. So let me just pull that. Okay. Now, if you think about the cost is $4 and the selling price of the manufacturer, the selling price of the manufacturer, if you think about it, is basically the cost of the wholesaler. Because this is the price that they agreed, so it becomes the selling price of the manufacturer because they will be deal at that price per unit. But for the wholesaler, it becomes the cost. So now they have to sell more than the cost. And also similarly, they will do the same thing in here as well. The wholesaler selling price will become the cost of the retailers. So whatever the selling price of the one before will be the cost of the one after, if you think about it. So that's the first relationship that you need to understand. So now we just have to crack the case because we know what is the selling price of the retailer. So if we know the cost, then it's basically the selling price of the wholesaler, which is your question right here. So how? Now we know that the retailers is taking 50% markup. Okay, so this is actually a markup. Now, is this a forward markup or the backward markup? Now, if you think about it, I know the selling price and I want the cost. So this is becoming a backward markup. Now, if we come back to backward markup, it will be this formula right here. So let's take a look. So let's solve what is retailers cost. Okay, and this is backward. Okay, why do I know it is backward? It's because we got the selling price. We want to find out the cost. So that's backward. And why is it markup? Because the question said so, right? So the reason why is it markup is because of that part right there. Because they said retailers take 50% markup. So we are doing backward markup formula. So the cost will be equals to the selling price divided by 1 plus, so the cost will be equals to $10 divided by 1 plus 0.5, and that's going to be 67 cents. Now if you think about it, so I solved the first part of it, so this become my $6.67, so that's the cost. And that also, because the cost of the retailers will be my wholesaler selling price, and I can fill up this table straight away. Now, so this is number 1, okay, and this is also number 1. Okay, I'm going to use different color to iterate number 2. Now, number 2 is that I'm going to find out the wholesaler's cost. Okay. Now, in this case, I know the selling price is $6.67, and I want to find out the cost again. I know the selling price. So again, this is going to be the backward. And in this case, it's margin. So in this case, it's backward margin. Okay, so in the backward margin, so the cost will be SP bracket 1 minus margin. So in this case, $6.67 bracket minus 0.1. So because of that, that will be $6.003. So approximately you can call it $6. So this is going to be $6, and this is going to be $6 as well. So this is number 2 and number 2. So I hope that makes sense on the way how would you calculate your markup and margin. Now in the vertical channel, the higher order members is the lower order selling cost. Now this is exactly what this is showing. So you can see in here, the selling price of the manufacturer becomes the wholesaler's cost, while the selling price of the wholesalers becomes the retailer's cost. So this is what they're showing you right here. So you can calculate this by yourself. So that's all for this part of the video. In the next part of the video, we are going to go through the break-even pricing. So stay tuned and I'll see you in the next video.